Hello, everybody. My name is Vidishaa Prakaash, and today I shall present to you my conference paper titled Methodology for Oral Didactic, Retroflex Consonants of Indo-Aryan Languages. The chairperson for today's session is Dr. Osmani. She's a PhD in linguistics from Terbat Modares University in Tehran. Currently, she's teaching and doing research in the field of linguistics at University of Kurdistan and Kurdistan University of Medical Science in Iran. Her research interest is in the field of syntax, semantics, and Iranian languages. So first of all, the aim of this paper is to propose a methodology for facilitation of both perception and production of retroflex consonants, a pertinent trait of Indo-Aryan languages. I shall be focusing on particularly Hindi-Urdu phonology, henceforth referred to as Hindi phonology, using the methodology of favorable context given by Monique Calament in 1981 to teach the pronunciation of French to foreign language learners. Therefore, I will first present some important characteristics of the language and pertinent traits of its phonology, and then retroflex consonants in particular, and the methodology of favorable context, and my proposed methodology for teaching Hindi and other Indo-Aryan languages, specifically the retroflex consonants. Hindi. Hindi is a verb final language belonging to the Indo-Aryan branch of Indo-European languages, with a speaking population of about 6.15 million, 615 million as their L1 and L2, making it one of the fourth most spoken language in the world in terms of population. It has 45 phonemes, that is 38 consonants and 12 vowels. There's a one-to-one graphic phonic correspondence, which means that each consonant and vowel have their own individual graphemes. These graphemes are a part of an alpha-syllabary writing system where, as you can see here, they're a part of an alpha-syllabary writing system where the vowel is marked on the consonant, thus creating consonant vowel clusters, and the boundary between syllables are distinctly marked. I will not be considering consonant vowel clusters since this is a mere proposed methodology. Continuing with pertinent traits, consonants in Hindi's phonological system oppose on 4 traits. You have manner of articulation, place of articulation, voicing, and aspiration. So we have place of articulation, which can be either labial, place of articulation, labial, alveolar, retroflex. We're specifically working on retroflexes. We have manner of articulation, so plosives, taps, sprills, etc. Voicing and aspiration. Aspiration, however, it is to be noted, is not a trait in French. Retroflex consonants, according to the Dictionary of Linguistics and Phonetics, retroflex consonants are coronal consonants determined on the basis of their place of articulation. That is the sound made when the tip of the tongue is curled back, as we can see here. And then in the direction of the front part of the hard palate, right here, kind of like this. Since retroflex consonants are defined by their place of articulation, in Hindi, they may vary on either articulation or voicing. Plosive consonants in particular may also differ on aspiration. And it is also important to note that the retroflex sh is often pronounced as sh by educated speakers, and therefore we shall not be considering them. These are considered indigenous consonants of the language, and they're found in most of the language family of the Indian linguistic area, not just the Indo-European language family, and including other languages of the world. It constitutes to about 20% of that. They're found in about 20% of all languages in the world, and they're considered one of the major phonological trait evolutions that differentiated them from their superbranch in the Indo-Iranian languages. Moving on to the approach of favorable contexts. This is a methodology proposed by Monique Calamant, a professor or a maître de conférence in the University of Sorbonne Nouvelle in the 90s. In her book, Méthodologie de l'enseignement de la prononciation, organisation des matières phoniques du français et correction phonétique, which is a long name, of course. This book is still widely used, despite being published in the 80s, and even today, to facilitate and systematize the teaching of pertinent sounds of the language, using inherent relations between vowels and consonants, which are both articulatory traits as well as acoustic traits. The three main operational traits of phonemes that are used in this that are considered here in this methodology, which may also be considered acoustic traits, are articulation, so the degree of labialization of a certain vowel or consonant, the motors. Okay, sorry. Yeah, there's also motor traits, which means the tenseness or the tensing of a certain vowel, how tense it is, and the acoustic trait, which is the acuteness or the sharpness of a vowel or a consonant. There are two separate approaches when considering. Sorry, I just have to move this. Yeah, there are two separate approaches within the methodology itself, one for vowels and one for consonants. Among vowels, you have high vowels like E and U being considered more tense, while nasalized mid-open vowels like and being considered less tense. Similarly, rounded vowels are considered more labialized, as we can see here. Yeah, amongst grave vowels, you have high vowel, the high vowel U, U, not the arrondi of the one found in French, U, which is considered to be more tense than mid-open vowels, such as O or A, which are also considered less tense. As you might notice as well, in both of these tables, they do resemble somewhat to the vocalic triangle, which is found in the International Phonetic Alphabet, but these are separated on their acoustic trait of acuteness or graveness. For consonants, they're similarly categorized on the basis of acuteness and graveness, with each category having their internal degree of labialization as well as tensing. Vowel consonants, however, are given the status of being neutral, so neither grave nor labial. Therefore, the main work of this methodology was to juxtapose this table of acoustic and operational traits on the Hindi sound system and find out what traits can retroflexes be accorded. So, some of the findings that here were, some of the findings here were these, which is that consonants with a place of articulation in the front, such as labial consonants, b and b, even p and b, are considered grave. Consonants with the place of articulation in the back of the mouth, like velar and irregular, are often even glottal ones are neutral, while the rest of them, which are in the middle, are given the trait of acute. Voiceless consonants are considered to be tense, while voiced consonants are considered to be lax. In this table, we can see that the juxtaposed consonants sit pretty much perfectly if you consider them to be grave or acute, like here. The consonants in bold are the ones which are common between both phonological systems of French and Hindi. To which, once again, we use the findings of Calment were considered, and thus retroflex consonants can be defined in this system as acute with labialization more than alveolar, because in acute phonemes, acuteness is directly proportional to labialization. And created the following proposed table of consonantal relations, which has the following properties. Aspirated retroflex consonants are more tense than their unaspirated counterparts. Voiceless retroflex consonants are more tense than their voiced counterparts, and retroflex consonants are more acute and labialized than their alveolar counterparts. To give you an example, if we had to do a differentiation between t and t, t being the alveolar aspirated alveolar, and t being the retroflex alveolar counterpart, we can see that one is less acute than the other and less labialized than the other, while the tenseness remains the same for both. Therefore, an example such as TK in a context with an exclamatory tone would be considered to help them in their perception of the phoneme t, which, of course, since t here is more acute than its alveolar counterpart, and therefore these suggestions were used that a consistent high tone should be used, such as exclamation, therefore TK in an exclamatory tone. The consonant position should be in the beginning of the word, which is why it is in an attack position, as well as being used in a consonant cluster with E or E, for example here with E. And finally, to conclude, the differentiation were it on tenseness would have similar properties as I have given here. And yes, finally, to conclude, it is very important to be noted that this is merely a proposed methodology with a theoretical base that obviously requires an application-based research with a large corpus to better understand and study its utility in a classroom context. And this perception and production of retroflex consonants among Francophone learners is exactly what I'm working on at the moment as a part of my master's thesis. Thank you.